Puppet Combo might be one of my favourite game developers of all time, as I've come to realise I truly love their 80s VHS horror, slasher movie, and retro low poly survival horror games. But there's always been one question on my mind: are these games linked together in some kind of way? So over the past few days I've made a timeline using in-game lore and common sense we'll see if they're linked. Okay, so here are the games that will not be included in this timeline. First we have Meat Cleaver Mutilator, The Night Shift and Stay Out of the House, Spiders, Feed Me Billy, Blood Maniac, Day 7, Evil Clowns, and finally Sam Hain. Okay, so first on the timeline is The Glass Staircase, coming in around early 1900s, post-World War I, as we see letters from 1919 and other similar days. I think this because we generally get an old-fashioned vibe from the place we play in. People are still writing letters and nothing seems modern here, so I think it can sit comfortably here. Next, we have the prologue to Christmas Massacre, sitting in the nunnery from Nun Massacre. Obviously, before everything goes to shit. I think this part sits around the early 1950s, as the main character isn't allowed to go to a Christmas party at the beginning, showing this Christmas. And if we use common sense here, it's definitely not the 70s or 80s, as there's no technology nearly at all. So I would want to put this game lower on the timeline, but the 20 years later section of Christmas Massacre says otherwise. Next on the timeline is the second half of Christmas Massacre. Due to logic, we can say it takes place at Christmas, partly because it says 24th of December. And after the prologue, it comes up with a sign saying 20 years later, so we can assume that this game takes place in around the early 70s. Next on the timeline is the Nun Massacre. This game is set after the prologue to Christmas Massacre, with all the children gone and only the nun is left, as they kind of all died. Again, the technology. People are still sending letters, and the most advanced piece of technology found is a small faulty pocket radar. Also, there are VHS tapes in this game, leaving me to believe that the Nun Massacre is set around the late 70s. Moving swiftly along, we have a classic, Babysitter Bloodbath. With more brainpower, we can distinguish this game is probably set around the mid-70s to around 1977. We know this as due to technology and things seen within the in-game lore. Moving on, we have Nightwatch, which we know is set in 1978. We know this because in Power Drill Massacre, one of the newspapers say that 12 campers have disappeared since 1978 within the Pocono Mountains, which is where the player looks for a group of missing campers, eventually becoming the 12th. Skipping a few years, we get a Murder House and its prologue. I'm going to bundle these two together, as there's only a 3-year difference between the parts. We know this because in the prologue it says 3 years later, and then after the credits, we come to an image of a house saying, present day, 1987. Next on the timeline is Power Drill Massacre. Well, sort of. Power Drill Massacre actually takes place in between the prologue and main game Murder House. We know this due to in-game lore and newspaper clippings. Now moving on to Nightwatch, probably one of my favourite Puppet Combo games. We know this game is set in the year 1989, as the sketchy guy on the radio says so. Next, we have the filming of the Riverside Incident tape and the viewing of it. We know the tape was recorded in 1989, due to it saying so in the bottom left of the screen. The tape was later recovered in 1991 by a group of teenagers. Now, we have Buzzsaw Bloodhouse. I'd never even heard of this one before making the video. This one's easy. It's set in 1997, it says in the top right of the camera. Finally, Planet of the Bloodthirsty Santa. I have no clue when this game is set, but I can safely assure you that it is set in the far future. Well, that wraps up the video right there. So yeah, that was the Puppet Combo Games timeline that I made. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to hit all the little YouTube buttons down below, and well, I'll see you next time.